Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. As always, I'm Jeremiah, and we are back with another show for you guys today. It is 8:30 in the morning here on April 4th, 2017, and we had some breaking news this morning. Probably the biggest breaking news of the entire offseason in the NFL, and that is Tony Romo. He is walking away from football to pursue a broadcasting career with CBS. He will replace Phil Simms as the number one analyst on the network. So this means that he's no longer playing football. And honestly, I think this might be the right decision for Tony Romo moving forward. And, we talked about Romo this entire offseason. He's dominated the storylines as, possibly going to another team. And everyone thought that, well, at least I did, thought he had a couple good years left in him. But, I can't blame him for walking away from the game because, he had a really incredible run with the Cowboys. And when you talk about the Cowboys, they are notably probably one of the most famous sport franchises in North America and maybe possibly the world. But, they're definitely one of the biggest brands in the NFL. So, he is the Cowboys franchise all-time leader in passing touchdowns. He has 248. He has 34,183 passing yards and 97.1 passer rating. So all those three things, he is the all-time leader in Cowboys history. So Tony Romo was a guy that has been playing with injuries the past couple of years. He hasn't played a full 16-game season since 2012, but he did play 15 games 2013 and 2014. And a lot of people are going to kind of disrespect Tony Romo's kind of legacy a little bit. He won't be remembered as an all-time great, which is a shame because I did think when he was fully healthy, he was really great for the Cowboys. And, I just imagine if he just had one postseason run where he won a Super Bowl, maybe his legacy would have been a totally a lot different. But, his career, I honestly think Tony Romo's career will be defined by injuries and, one playoff win. And in the NFL, you are judged based on wins and losses, of course. But most importantly, you're also judged on playoff wins. And how many Super Bowls do you have? So we can just look at some of the top quarterbacks now who are pretty much around the same age as Tony Romo. And let's look at their legacies. Of course, Tom Brady has 6 Super Bowls, or at least he has 5. I think he has 5, yeah. 5 or 6. Whatever. That's still a lot. So his legacy is going to be known as probably the greatest of all time. And he's going to be 40 years old. And then you got Drew Brees here, who I talked about yesterday. He's 38 years old. He has 5 seasons when he's thrown over 5,000 yards. He has 1 Super Bowl win. He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer because of that Super Bowl win, I think. Even if without that Super Bowl win, I still think there would have been a chance he would have been in the Hall of Fame, and I'm talking about Drew Brees, due to, breaking Dan Marino's passing yard record, even though that's kind of not even a huge tax now. But, he's definitely someone that has a legacy. And then, Tony Romo, he doesn't have the same accomplishments of those guys. He just doesn't. He's been really under scrutiny the entire career. He has a very complicated legacy. And when you look back at Tony Romo from now, a couple years from now, maybe 5 years, 10 years, I still think he's going to be one of the most underappreciated players to ever play on the field. And it's a shame. When he was great, he had a lot of great moments. My favorite Tony Romo moment was against my 49ers. And yes, it really hurts me to say this, but when I saw this on television in 2011, when it was Jim Harbaugh's 49ers, and this was a really tough Jim Harbaugh team, and it was at Candlestick Park. I think it was the last year or the year before Candlestick was, I think it was the last year the Niners played there. I think it was week 3, week 4. It was very early in the season. But, the Niners were winning 24-14. And I remember this game because it just was amazing what Tony Romo did. 24-14. He was out of the most of the game due to I think it was a injury. I forgot the injury on top of my head, but I think it was something with his back or ribs. I will go with the ribs part. It was an injury that kept him out most of the game. So he's not in the game. I think John Kitna was the backup for the Cowboys at the time, so he played most of the game. And then once I think the fourth quarter was ending, Tony Romo goes back into the game. He gets the Cowboys to score, and then they also tie it up to get the game into overtime at 24. And when overtime came, Tony Romo found a wide open Jason Hawley for a long gain that got the ball, I think, inside the 20. And then they won the game on a field goal. And that is probably one of the toughest and greatest moments I've seen from Tony Romo. But yet, he will not be remembered as a tough player. And he won't because of the low amount of playoff wins he has. I think he will probably most be remembered of that botched extra point hold in the playoff game against the Seahawks rather than that 49er game. That is where he will be known for throughout his career. And it's tough for me to say that because the more failures you have, you're going to be judged more on the failures. If you have more success, you're going to be judged on the success. You're going to be judged on the success that you have. So, moving forward, it looks like that Tony Romo could have a chance to return. It's going to take a lot of money for teams to get Tony Romo out of retirement, but why would you want to come out of retirement? I think Tony Romo is honestly in the best spot ever in his life, and he would have probably had the TV job 2 years, 3 years from now. But when you're 37 years old, you got a lot of injuries the past couple of years that kept you out of the game. I think this was the right decision for Tony Romo, and I'm not mad at him. Yeah, I think he would have had a couple great years left. I think he would have been great for Denver, great for Houston, but he had to make the best decision of his life, and this, I totally agree. This came down to his health. He's turning 37 in about a couple weeks. He was limited to just 5 games over 2 seasons. When you think of the injuries over the past 2 seasons, there were collarbone and back injuries. Those are injuries that take a while to heal. And, he also suffered that compression fracture in his back in August that led to Dak Prescott becoming the man in Dallas. And the thing I think the reason why he made this decision is because, I don't think he wanted to move his family out of Texas or at least in Dallas in that area. Now it gives him a chance to keep his family where they're at, and he can travel to call games every weekend. When a lot of analysts, they call games, I think they travel, every Friday, every Thursday. So he will be gone every weekend, and he will spend more time with his family. That I do get, and I do agree that maybe if he really wants to spend more time with his family than playing on the football field, then maybe that is the best decision that he will get. So when I think about Tony Romo and his legacy, like I said previously, I think he will be remembered more for his failures. And when I think of him as, I think of his toughness. I think of his underappreciation. And I just can't get over what he did in that game versus the 49ers. And when that happened, I was like, this guy is good. He's a stud. I was shocked when he came back into that game in 2011. And I'm still shocked now. It's 2017. That was 6 years ago. But, moving forward with the Cowboys, it looks like Dak Prescott is going to be the man there. Denver, they still got Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch. Looks like Houston has to go to Tom Savage. Or Brandon Whedon. One of those guys can win the job. But I have to say this, I think Tony Romo had a great career. Yeah, he may have never won many playoff games, he may have never won a Super Bowl, but when you're an undrafted free agent and then you become the starter to one of the most famous franchises in football, and then you make that transition to TV, that's a pretty great career in my opinion. You don't get many guys that do that. That become a free agent, undrafted free agent, become the quarterback of the Cowboys for a while, and then go into TV. So, Tony Romo will probably never go into the Hall of Fame, and I don't think he is a Hall of Famer. It's tough for me to say that because he does have a lot of franchise records. But he just doesn't have a lot of playoff wins to go along with it. And, when you go to the Hall of Fame, it's judged basically on the amount of... I think most of it, most of the Hall of Fame, it is judged on wins and losses. And, Tony Romo was, he does have a lot of wins, but he does have some losses as well. He is one of the top, touchdown passers, throwers and Cowboys. He has the stats to back it up. But I don't know if he's first ballot. If he does go into the Hall of Fame, it might be a long time from now. I just think with him not having much success in the playoffs, I think we'll keep him out. I think if he won the Super Bowl, he would have had a better chance. But I just don't think, as of right now, I can't call him a Hall of Famer right now. Maybe the TV job will help him out get into there. But I can't see him because of he just didn't have one playoff run where he went to a Super Bowl and won it. I think if that would have happened, I think his legacy would be a lot different right now. Tony Romo has a career record of 78-49. He was never able to get past the divisional round. They just weren't able to get it done whenever. But I do think that, Romo has a lot of team records. He has the most 300-yard passing games. He has the multiple touchdown pass games at 79. He has consecutive games with the touchdown pass. He has a season record of 4,903 yards for a Cowboys thrower. He has the most touchdown, well, not the most touchdown. He has the most passing yards in the game in Cowboys history. That is 506 yards against the Broncos. That was Peyton Manning's Broncos in 2013. He owns the NFL record with a touchdown pass in 41 straight road games. So he has a lot of stats to back him up to he has a claim for the Hall of Fame. I just don't think with him not getting past the division round, with him not going to the Super Bowl ever, with him not having a lot of success in the postseason, I think that's going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame for a while. I just can't call him a Hall of Fame. I can't. But I do say this, Tony Romo has the 9th most passing touchdowns among quarterbacks to play their entire career with one team. And that is pretty amazing. Tony Romo has been a Cowboy pretty much his entire career. And, he's going to be remembered as a Cowboy. And I do think that's the most important thing here. He's going to be remembered as a Dallas Cowboy. He won't be remembered as a Denver Bronco. He won't be remembered as the Houston Texans. And maybe that's the thing that played into him walking away. Maybe he didn't want to play for another team. Maybe he just didn't feel like it was right. Maybe he wanted to end his career as a Dallas Cowboy. And so maybe that played a part of him walking away from the game. But as we move forward, I am looking forward to Tony Romo in the booth. He may be getting a little too old to play football. And don't worry, not everyone ages well in the NFL. Maybe he's at a point in his life where he has to start taking care of his long-term health. But I'm telling you right now, you don't get too old to talk football. And that's what Tony Romo is doing. I think I'm really excited to see him as a broadcaster and analyst. I think he might do a good job. He is replacing Phil Simms, who's been in that spot for a while. So I am looking forward to that. And if there's a comeback possible, I don't know. I just think being in the booth for a major network like CBS, I think that's just way too good to pass up. And you're going to have to throw him a lot of money for him to come back. When you don't have to go to training camp, you don't have to go to OTAs, you don't have to do the off-season workout programs, I think Tony Romo is going to think about that. Maybe he's just tired, and maybe the injuries he doesn't want to get injured anymore. Maybe he wants to think about his long-term health, his family, and that's fine. And I think that with him becoming a broadcaster now, I think that's the best decision of his life. And, I'm really excited to see what he can do in the booth. So I'm going to take my first break. And when I get back, I'm going to discuss Adrian Peterson and him leaving New England without a contract. So I'll discuss that when I return to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. And, yesterday, the big story was Adrian Peterson visiting the New England Patriots. And around the afternoon, the nighttime, it was reported that Adrian Peterson left the facility of the Patriots without a contract. And remember, this was his second free agent visit. His first being with the Seahawks in mid-March. And he has 2 visits so far with teams that really fit him the most. Now, he doesn't have a contract still. And I really did think that with Adrian Peterson visiting the Patriots, I thought this was a done deal. I thought, this is going to get done. I thought the Patriots were going to be the super team. But no. Adrian Peterson's still a free agent as of right now. And remember, the Patriots did make some moves to get their team better. They did sign Rex Burkhead, who can be a really great player. He can be like a Danny Woodhead type of role. They did acquire Brandon Cooks to pretty much take the defense, the top of the defense off. And he is a great speed threat, probably the greatest speed threat the Patriots have had since Randy Moss. So, Bill Belichick, he's one of the best to pretty much acquire talent at a discounted price. Maybe Adrian Peterson wanted too much money. Maybe Adrian Peterson just didn't want to be there. But honestly, though, why wouldn't you want to be there? This is a team that won the Super Bowl. They have Tom Brady. They have that winning culture there. Why wouldn't you not want to play there? So I would take that out. I just think maybe it was the money. Maybe he wants maybe a little too much for his value here. And we know the Patriots, they don't overpay for players. They don't. They did make some free agent acquisitions. They did sign Stephon Gilmore to, I think, like a 5-year deal, which I'm still kind of baffled about. But still, they don't like to overpay for players. And Adrian Peterson should be no different. He's 32 years old. And people like to make the comparison of the Patriots potentially acquiring Peterson, like the Patriots acquired Corey Dillon. People like to make that comparison. I think it's a little different in this case. Corey Dillon was younger than Adrian Peterson. I don't know. I don't think Corey Dillon was coming off his worst season. Adrian Peterson, he's 32, older than Corey Dillon. He's coming off his worst season, probably the worst I've ever seen from a running back. So, where does this lead Adrian Peterson and, his outlook for the season? He has two free agent visits. There is a need at running back for Oakland. But do you think it's possible that Adrian Peterson might not even be on a team? I don't know. I couldn't even think about it. And, I think if Adrian Peterson would have signed a contract yesterday with the Patriots, I think a lot of people would have been very unhappy. A lot of people, I was on Twitter yesterday, and people were like, the NFL is basically turning to the NBA, which I don't think it's true. There's a salary cap. There's no way you can have super teams. So, I do think who benefited from this, I think it might be like Garrett Blount, honestly. Maybe the Patriots could bring back Garrett Blount potentially, and I think he can benefit from this move by the Patriots not signing AP. Because if Adrian Peterson did sign with it, let's just say if he did. Let's just say if he did sign with the Patriots, he would have been probably very unstoppable in the goal line. This team would have been very unstoppable. I don't want to think about it, because you got Rob Gronkowski in the red zone, big target. Then you got Brandon Cooks as a deep threat. To top it off, you got Julian Edelman who can take the underneath routes, and then you got Rex Burkhead who can pretty much do anything. You still got James White there. And then you still got Dion Lewis. And then you would have brought Adrian Peterson in that equation to be practically your goal line back. This would have been potentially very scary. So I just got to question why wasn't a deal done. It baffles me that a deal has not been done about this. And with the Patriots not signing Peterson, does that mean the market has got a little bit more colder now? So, with the Raiders not even interested in Adrian Peterson, and them going for Marshawn Lynch really says something to me. Like, does Adrian Peterson even have it anymore? Well, Jerome Bettis, who is one of my favorite running backs of all time, he did say Adrian Peterson definitely still has it. But when I was talking about Tony Romo earlier in this show, and let's just say Adrian Peterson cannot find a team, I wouldn't be surprised if Adrian Peterson just walks away from the game and, retire a Minnesota Viking. And never know, maybe the market is cold because of the running backs in the draft. Maybe Adrian Peterson will have to wait until then. But honestly, I thought he would have had more interest in the market. Adrian Peterson, I'm going to be honest, I don't think he is that guy to get you 2,000 yards anymore. He's not going to be the guy that can be a 3-down back. I think he has to be a role player to be successful. That's why I liked him in New England. I actually like him in Houston with Lamar Miller there. I kind of like him with Denver because, they got a lot of depth behind him. I did like him in Oakland, but they're not interested. I just don't like. Does Adrian Peterson still have it at all? We're looking forward to, the NFL draft. You got guys like, Leonard Fournette, who has drawn a lot of comparisons to Adrian Peterson. You got Dalvin Cook. You got Alvin Kamara. You got Joe Mixon. You got a lot of talent there. And don't forget, you got Christian McCaffrey as well. So there's a lot of talent in this draft at the running back position, probably one of the best I've seen in a while. So I am not surprised by, teams going for those gentlemen because, they are younger. You can probably do a lot more with them. Adrian Peterson, he is 32 years old. Maybe he doesn't have anything left in the tank. I think maybe if Adrian Peterson, if he's not signed to a team this summer, I think there's a chance that he may consider retirement. When you don't have a lot of interest in teams, or when teams don't have a lot of interest in you, maybe you just don't have it anymore. And, I really did think that meniscus injury did really hurt him. It really derailed him. Because, before that, he wasn't even doing anything. But he came back from that meniscus injury way too soon. He came back from that way too soon. And I just don't. I think that really hurt him and being a productive player. And I understand why he came back. His team was in a postseason hunt. They had a chance to make the playoffs, but, his team was pretty bad at that point. I think he should maybe think about retirement if no team wants to sign him. And remember, running backs over 30, they don't have much of a life. And when you think of the other running backs that are over 30 right now, there's probably one still playing at a pretty productive level. We got Frank Gore. I think he's going to be 33, 34 soon. So he's still playing pretty good. But you got guys like Jamal Charles, who's 30 years old. He's probably not going to sign to a team maybe until like August. Running backs are they just don't have much of a life when, they hit the age of 30. And I know Adrian Peterson is 2 years removed from leading the league in rushing. But I'm telling you right now, football is the game changes so quick. And I think that's what happens to Adrian Peterson. The game has really changed on him. And, his type of style, it just doesn't. I think, honestly, one of the reasons why the Patriots did not sign Adrian Peterson is because maybe he just doesn't fit their style of offense. Maybe he just doesn't at all. Remember, they know Adrian Peterson is he's that bruiser back. He can go down the middle. He can go side to side. But, he's a type of guy that really wants the ball at least 3 times. He wants to be that 3-down back. I think the Patriots knew that he wanted to be a 3-down back, but they wanted him to be a role player because they got so much running backs there. Maybe that's the reason why they couldn't agree. But if I was Adrian Peterson, I'd be like, this gives me a chance to go to a Super Bowl. Maybe I should sign with this team. And it didn't happen. So maybe it was a huge mistake on Adrian Peterson's part. This didn't happen. But I want to know the reason why it didn't. I want to know the reason why. And I think we might have to wait till the NFL draft for Adrian Peterson to go on the team. And that's going to be later this month. We might have to wait till May for Adrian Peterson to sign a deal. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes or if he goes anywhere. All right, well, I'm going to take my last break. And when I get back, I'm going to talk about one of the top quarterbacks in this draft and what his former coach said of what he should have done. I'll discuss that when I return to the Going to Me Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to Going to Me Concepts Football Podcast. And yesterday, one of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft, DeShone Kizer, his coach from Notre Dame, Brian Kelly, said that Kizer should have stayed in college for one more year. He should have stayed. And honestly, I really agree. I think DeShone Kizer, he's not ready to start right now. He does have the potential to be great. But when you're talking about him right now, can he help a team win games right now? I don't think he can. So I really do agree that, with Brian Kelly here about him turning pro, he should still be in college. And Brian Kelly says that he should still be in college. He needs more time to grow in so many areas, but not just on the field, but also off the field. Kelly did say he recommended Kizer to get more playing time at Notre Dame, but did add that he supported Kizer leaving. Kelly said once the decision was made, they were united and they went to work to put him in the best situation. And when DeShone Kizer declared for the NFL draft in December, a lot of draft analysts there, Mike Mayock, Thomas Shea, Mel Kiper, they all agreed that he should have stayed in college. Because when you look at his stats from last season, they're better than 2015. Last year for Notre Dame, DeShone Kizer threw 26 touchdowns, only threw 9 interceptions. He did have 2,925 yards, so he almost had to 3,000. But when you look at his game log, he had a great game against Texas. He literally kept that team in the game. Yeah, he threw for 5 touchdowns, 215 yards. So he had a great game. But when he started going down, he started to play really average. The next week against Nevada, or I should say the next game against Nevada for Notre Dame, DeShone Kizer only threw 156. He threw 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. And after that, he did throw over 300 yards in the next 2 games. He did throw over 400, but that was against Syracuse. Syracuse was awful last year. They've been one of the worst FBS teams in the past few years. But when you look at the games against Michigan State and Duke, yeah, he threw over 300 yards, but his team lost those games. And when you go for the next 2 games after the Syracuse game, North Carolina State, they lost that game. He threw for 54 yards and 1 interception, and against Stanford, they lost that game. Threw for 2 interceptions and 154. So, DeShone Kizer was very, very inconsistent last season. That's what the thing I'm trying to say here is that, he can have a game when he throws for 5 touchdowns, but he can also have a game when he can throw for less than 100 and throw 2 picks. So that's the thing that really worries me about the team that drafts Kizer, whether that's teams like the Jets, the Texans, the 49ers. I do think he's not going to start right away. He's definitely going to probably sit for 1 or 2 years, depending on the team he goes to. But when you look at his overall body of work in college, it's not very great. And I know he can become a really good NFL quarterback. I'm not denying that. But when you want him to play right now, when you're drafting him, you got to make sure you can't play him right now. You can, but you're not going to win many games. I think he might be worse than Goff if he does play. And I don't want to back on Goff there. I still think he has time to shine. But as a rookie, I don't think DeShone Kizer can play right now. He definitely is going to take time to develop. He should have stayed in college to grow on the field. He does have the typical franchise quarterback look. He is 6'4". I think he's over like 230. He does have an arm, but I just think his accuracy is not up to par. And I just think DeShone Kizer, he's someone that's benefiting from a weak draft class. He just says he's just like Mr. Trubisky. Mr. Trubisky, the reason why he's in the draft is because the draft class is weak. If, just look ahead. If DeShone Kizer would have waited to come into the draft, he would have not been one of the top guys. You got guys potentially like Sam Darnold. You got Jake Browning. They're going to go ahead DeShone Kizer next year if Kizer would have stayed in college. So I get the reason why Kizer declared early, because he knew he has a chance to be a first-round pick. And that's the thing with, I think there's only certain quarterbacks that stayed but happened to get the same draft status next year. Andrew Luck, when he was at Stanford, everyone thought he was going to declare early. But, that same year, the Carolina Panthers had a number 1 pick, and Andrew Luck stayed in school. So, Carolina ended up getting Cam Newton. And then the next year, Indianapolis Colts, they were just the worst team. They're very horrendous. Peyton Manning was hurt and on sideline the entire year. And, of course, they got Andrew Luck. So, I don't disagree with DeShone Kizer, not, declaring for the NFL draft, because he knows this is a weak draft class and he benefits from that. But, I also agree with Brian Kelly and all the other draft analysts there that say he should have stayed in school for 1 more year. But honestly, though, when you're in DeShone Kizer's shoes and, you're looked at as one of the top prospects in a quarterback class, and, you see all the rest of the quarterbacks, none of the quarterbacks separated themselves from each other. We can have a quarterback go at number 1. We can have a quarterback go at number 12. We can have the first quarterback going at 25. No one has separated themselves in this class. So, this has worked to DeShone Kizer's benefits. He may end up being the best quarterback in this class. We don't know that yet. But, I don't disagree with him declaring for the draft, but I do agree that he should have stayed. So it remains to be seen what team drafts him. So let's just say if the 49ers draft him, he probably won't play for the first year. I think Brian Hoyer, he did sign her to be the starter. So there's potential of him sitting out a year. If he goes to the Jets, he's probably going to play. And I will feel really bad if that does happen to him. I think a perfect team for DeShone Kizer to go to would be the Arizona Cardinals or the New Orleans Saints. He's going to doesn't have to play right away. Those are two great quarterback offensive coaches. He can learn from veteran quarterbacks. He can learn from Carson Palmer or Drew Brees. And I do think those are the two best spots for him. I do think maybe Kansas City Chiefs, he can play behind Alex Smith. Alex Smith is on contract for 2 more years. So I think I can see that as a really great possibility. And they got the Raiders in their division for the next 10 years. So they got to compete with those guys over there when they hit to Vegas. So I do think DeShone Kizer, he has a chance to be a good NFL starter, but I don't think he will I don't think he'll contribute right away, and all it depends on which team he goes to. It all depends on which team he goes to. All right, well, that's going to conclude my show, and I'll be back tomorrow. Anthony will be back tomorrow as well. I'll discuss any type of news that happens over the next 24 hours. As always, I'm Jeremiah. You guys have tuned in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. You guys have a great day and have a pleasant tomorrow.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.